Win all in, play my cards right. Up the ante, one blackjack all night. Roll the dice, let it ride. Water the odds, I got snake eyes.
Entrepreneur Perspectives is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, a production company and content network. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com.
So I just here with Wes Connor Insurance Agency. We've had a good long relationship over the years and just wanted to kind of talk with you about your experiences in the industry, how you got in there. I think we got some common interest in football teams, and so we can talk about that. But tell me a little bit about where you're from and how you got into the business.
Okay, I'm actually from Pittsburgh, born and raised. Got into the insurance business in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
I graduated from Ohio University, got a job with Procter & Gamble selling soap, moved back to Pittsburgh, absolutely hated it. I think I really hated working. So
Right.
I went back to graduate school at Ohio State, hung out at Ohio State for a year.
There you go.
And then backed into the insurance business.
You know, that's another thing you've got in common with Eric Kasimoff is he's a big Ohio State fan. So Ohio State with him and Pittsburgh with me. So it's kind of funny. You kind of became a fan kind of naturally, but I became a fan back when there was only 3 channels. I can tell you when I started liking the Steelers was when they played the 72 Dolphins in the playoffs. And I remember, of course, the Dolphins were undefeated and they were just a great team. And I remember actually feeling sorry for the Steelers. I was only 10 years old. And I felt sorry for them. You know, as a guy, I feel sorry because they hadn't made the playoffs in a long time. And then they got in there, and of course, the team they get to play is the Dolphins. And so that's when I started liking them. And then, of course, in the 70s was just the heyday of Pittsburgh and them winning. So I'm sure, were you there during that time?
Definitely. In fact, I remember 1978, they were doing We Are Family, the
Oh, yeah.
Pirates,
Oh, yeah.
the Steelers, Penguins.
Yep.
It was some pretty heady days in the 70s, and hopefully we'll get a few more of those.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Yeah, I think I told you I made my son a fan. He had a Steeler T-shirt on the day he was born. And so, in fact, we went to a game this year. And so, yeah, he's a dyed-in-the-wool Steeler fan, too. So is your son the same way?
No, he's a Panther fan.
Okay.
This is the team he grew up with, so
Okay, yep.
he tolerates the Steelers.
So what made you want to get into the insurance business?
I didn't. Actually, a guy had called me in to see if I'd be interested. I was working as a waiter while I was in graduate school at a restaurant chain and enjoyed it. And he called me in because he knew a lot of the management, and they were interested to see if I was interested in restaurant management.
Okay.
So he called me in and asked me if I was, and I said, 80 hours inside a building? Absolutely not. And he said, well, great. I want to talk to you about the insurance business. And at that point, you know, I had that little stuff in the back of your throat where you're just like, oh, man, I'm going from bad to worse.
Yep.
But then he said, look, I don't know how to train you. I don't know how to do this, but here's what we'll do. First of all, I don't want you to sell to any of your friends for the first couple of years.
Wow.
And I'll pay you $12,000 the first year, $16,000 the second year, and $20,000 the third year. And I was making $9,600 with Procter & Gamble, so I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty good dough.
Yep.
So my next question was, well, what happens after the third year? And he says, don't worry, you'll either love it or hate it.
Right.
And I loved it.
That's good. So what year was that?
Do I have to say?
Before the 80s, right?
Yeah, 1975.
Okay.
So this is my 51st year.
Well, that's good. If you've been in this business that long, you've been successful. My story's kind of the same. My mother worked for Mass Mutual. She was actually an agent recruiter. I was in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I had an on-campus interview with a property and casualty company and got the job and really was in the home office. And then after about 10 years of that, kind of dipped my toe out into sales. And I mean, I went out like I didn't know anything. When I got hired by the insurance company I was hired by, I didn't even have my life license yet. So you talk about green, I mean, the first week in the industry was me getting my license, going to the class and doing the pre-licensing and getting my license. So I didn't know anything. And so I was going out seeing agents like you. And have you mostly been focused in the property and casualty since you started?
Although initially, one of the first things we did, there was a life guy who was calling on our P&C agency, and he said, "Hey, I've got a deal for you. If you take this training program and sell a certain amount of policies, I'll be able to pay you a bonus and whatever. And at the same time, I'll train you how to sell life insurance." So actually, most of my sales the first year were life insurance sales.
Right.
Kitchen table, living room, wherever.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue into something I wanted to talk about is how has doing business changed. We were just talking about how the younger generation is looking to access products. And you and I both, I did a whole lot of that too, where you were out in front of somebody at their kitchen table making that life sale or the disability sale or whatever it was. And like you said, you just told me, hey, I feel like I just can't get out of my office now, because I think part of that's the way that people are buying insurance now.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so are you seeing more where you're just doing things through DocuSign and video conferencing and things like that?
Absolutely. Our two largest clients I've never met them.
Yep.
And we've had one for 15 years, one for 9 years, and between them, they're spending about just under $1 million a year in premium.
Right.
And I've never met them.
Yep. And that's kind of my experience too. And I still, when I first started, you didn't have a cell phone. I actually literally had a pager and a roll of quarters. And we would, you'd get somebody would page you and you'd run to the nearest payphone and start dropping quarters. What do you need? And that's gone from now until I take applications over the phone. I take applications on my computer. And it's like you said, it's all DocuSign. Now, it's good and bad. And, so the good news is, I've done business in the last month in Massachusetts and Florida and Georgia and Alabama, places I couldn't possibly be if I were trying to be in front of somebody. But being able to do it on the computer really does help you. But I'm like you, I still like that face-to-face contacts. I'm always enjoy when I get out in front of a client.
Yeah, I miss that a lot. And, especially accounts I've had for years.
Yep.
They're way past insurance clients. They call you up and just, "Hey, I just need to run this by you." And next thing you know, we're not even talking insurance. We're talking about, here's what they're doing. We're talking about, how's the fishing going? What'd you catch?
Yep. And see, I think that's important. I really do, to have that, and sometimes you meet somebody one time, maybe I met you one time or two times, but from then on, I know what you look like. We've had a nice conversation and I'm hooked to you, because of that relationship where we got to meet face to face. So I still think there's something to be said for that.
I do too. And unfortunately, I just don't think Zoom is the same.
Yep.
It just doesn't seem as natural.
But Eric has had to drag me into the 21st century. So he's about 12 years younger than I am. And so I'm this guy that just go get in front of agents, want to be out there in front of everybody. And then he has a different view on things because he's a younger generation. And so he gives me good perspective on, hey, there's alternate ways to get at this. And one of them is what we're doing right now, is having a podcast. And it's amazing how you can connect with people through alternate methods like LinkedIn, podcast, again, video conferencing and so forth. Your son's in the business. I think you said you're in business with your brother. What got your son in the business? Was it just kind of the family business, or?
Well, actually, I tried not to even influence him on the insurance end. He went to the University of South Carolina for undergrad and decided he was going to major in accounting. And that's a class that I dropped 3 times.
Yep.
That's why I don't have an MBA.
Yep, I get that. Yep.
But he just thought that just was perfect for him. He got his bachelor's degree, got his master's degree, went to work for Ernst & Young, then Jones, Lang & LaSalle after that, and realized that we were in the heart of the DEI thing.
Oh, yeah.
And as he put it, he said, I just don't have any points to score with the way they're promoting people.
That's right.
I'm really just disenchanted with the whole thing.
Right.
So talk to me about the insurance business. And that's been about 6 years since he's been with me. And now he is running everything.
Wow.
And it's changed us around dramatically, like you've been dragged into today.
So the experience has been good, then, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, my daughter was, she was looking for a job and same kind of thing, just kind of didn't know exactly what she wanted to do. And she became one of our case managers here at CastSource. And, you never know how it is going to be working with a family member. But I remember the first day that we sat down, I started showing her how to run quotes and how to case manage and how to do commissions and how to do licensing and the whole 9 yards.
That's
and
a lot for the first day, by the way.
It is, yeah, it is. And, that's one thing. She learned everything because at CastSource, we don't have a big staff, and so we're not so compartmentalized. So she had to learn the whole business, basically. But I told her, I said, you're my daughter, and I love you, and that's not going to change. But I said, when we're at business, it's business. And it was a fantastic experience. And she was super good, super quick. I'm always amazed at how younger people pick up on the technology. You just said your son was running the agency, and he probably has some fresh ideas.
Definitely.
Yep. And so, so it was a great experience, and it really was a launching pad for her. She went on to another broker who just offered way more money than we were going to be able to pay her. And as much as I loved her, I said, hey, you got to go. That's just a super opportunity. So, yeah, it's been good. So we're a third-generation family in the industry. Now, how long have you worked with your brother?
40 years.
Okay.
40 years this year.
And is he here in Charlotte as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. When I moved to California, I was out there probably 5 years on my own. And then he moved out and started helping me there. And then we moved here in 1993 in the Carolinas.
So he's in your agency now?
Yes.
I haven't met him yet. I need to come meet him. So,
well, he keeps his door closed, and so he doesn't have to talk to life salespeople.
There you go. Try to avoid me. Yeah. I've had that experience over the years. So, yeah, the other thing is for the agents, there's not as many agents out here. There's not as many young people coming in. So that's why I always like to see when I've got actually have a fourth generation agency in High Point where the fourth generation and the fifth generation's there. The fifth generation's 12 years old, and I suspect he'll end up in the industry. And I've worked with 4 out of the 5 generations, so that's kind of neat. I've been around long enough I work with the grandfather, the dad, the son, and the grandson's coming. So, but I think there's a vacuum out there for agents that have expertise and experience like you do. There's not as many agents coming in that are doing what you do. Do you find that to be true?
For us, it's very difficult to hire people. We've been struggling to hire, and we need to hire more. Yep. And people just don't really, first of all, they don't understand the insurance business.
Right.
And quite frankly, I had no clue at the beginning, and I find that I learn every day, and it's changing consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So that even if you found a way that's working very well, you can find that tomorrow it's no longer going to be effective.
Right.
And you have to do something different.
Exactly.
But that's part of what's exciting about it. It gets so boring that you're just a robot.
Right. Yeah, and I just, I was thinking today on the way down here, there's a real opportunity, particularly on the life side. There's not many pure, unless you're a New York Life or a Northwestern Mutual agent or Mass Mutual, there's not that many pure life insurance agents out there anymore. I mean, maybe their core business is the property and casualty, or their core business is the health insurance, the benefits, and then they're selling life insurance as it comes to them. But there's not as many agents that are coming in saying, hey, I'm a life guy and I'm going to sell life insurance, or I'm going to sell disability insurance. So I think for me, even though I'm 61, I think there's endless possibilities out there, because as we move forward, there's not as many people that have that expertise that we have. I have some agents that they don't even want to mess with the life insurance, and so they'll end up just saying, hey, you take it and let it be your case. And so that, I've had that experience. And so,
well, you've helped me on a lot of cases that I've done the same thing,
Yep, just take care of it. Yeah.
We have it. They need it.
Yep.
Mitch.
Yep. And that's it. And so that's where, like you and I have had a really good relationship with talking with clients and getting them what they need. And between your relationship with them and then the knowledge that I have about the particular products, that's kind of the idea for us to work together, and we could be a valued resource to you. So,
absolutely.
yep.
And we need to really expand that, actually, Mitch, because we're leaving too much money on the table.
Right. And, what I always tell agents is, your customers are buying these products from somebody, and maybe they're getting it online. A lot of people think if I go online, it's going to be less expensive. Everybody gets quoted preferred rates online. If you go out online, that's not always what you end up getting because you do have to qualify. And so having somebody to navigate that process with them. The other thing that we do, Eric and I have been talking about, is we help a lot of clients with claims. And I don't know in your world if the claims process has gotten more difficult. Have you found that to be the case?
Well, it's more difficult because a greater percentage of the claims now involve lawsuits and legal representation.
Right.
And, the client gets a 30-page document sent certified mail, that we're accusing you of everything under the sun.
Right.
And just give us your insurance company's name and we'll talk to them.
Right.
But we're willing to negotiate. So,
absolutely. Yeah, my daughter just had that experience. She had a wreck, and I won't name the company, but it was a difficult and long experience for something that she was not at fault, clearly not at fault, but it was still a battle. And so, we do a lot of long-term care claims, life insurance claims, and we have to help people navigate that process. It's not an easy process, and particularly the long-term care. And so getting people qualified for their long-term care claim, that's another service that we try to provide them, because I can't imagine somebody going straight to the carrier and trying to navigate the long-term care claims process.
I agree. I haven't had many of those, but I can certainly understand that's going to be difficult.
Yep.
It's not like a death claim.
Right.
Pretty obvious, and you have very little to do to prove it, but the long-term care is a big deal.
Yep.
And disability.
That's exactly right. Yep, exactly right. And that's a really under-purchased product. The disability insurance is something that a lot of people need. Everybody talks about their financial plan, but the biggest piece of that financial plan is the income. And so if you don't have that income, then that's going to be what brings the whole process down. So that's something we do promote. Tell me kind of about your agency and what your core focus is. Is it commercial, property, and personal lines, or is it both?
Both. We're about 65% commercial, 35% personal.
Okay.
We have personal lines clients in multiple states, as far as, Colorado and Washington, but then we have businesses primarily in the Southeast.
Okay.
And due to the fact we represent nearly 100 different insurance carriers, we have the ability to handle most types of accounts with accurate coverage. And it is a bit of a challenge. Certain lines of insurance are suffering from huge rate increases. Yep. Commercial auto insurance is a nightmare. And if you happen to own a restaurant that serves alcohol in South Carolina, you're looking at, $50,000, $100,000 premiums.
Oh, wow.
If you're selling any quantities.
That's why your drinks are $15 a piece when you go down there. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're going up. So,
yeah, we were just, my son lives in Washington, D.C., and this past weekend we were touring kind of the mall there in D.C., and we went to the Watergate Hotel. And, we're all very interesting to be there and see that hotel. But they had a bar there that it was really interesting looking. So we went in and had a drink at the Watergate. But it was $15 to $16 for your basic drinks in those places. And I guess part of that is the expense of the liability insurance for that.
Yeah, so it's quite high. Yeah.
Yeah, I think business owners too, in our business, there's a lot of needs there for, in our business, the life insurance, the disability, making sure that business is going to continue if they have the death of a key person or the disability of a key person. A lot of business owners don't think about. They always think about, if you and I are partners, one of us dies, what happens? We need to buy the other person out. But what happens if one of us becomes totally disabled? We're not dead. We still own the business, and yet we're not contributing. And so there's a need to, hey, we at some point need to buy you out. And so a lot of business owners don't think about that. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes, that's definitely something that is undersold.
Right.
And I'm guilty of that.
So, yeah, real important to kind of do that review. Anything else that you were thinking about? I just wanted to give you the opportunity to say anything you wanted to say on our podcast, or bring up any topics you'd like to discuss.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I think, to me, selling life insurance is a lot more satisfying than even picking up a new business client.
Right.
Because in the property and casualty world, it's generally something that is mandatory to some degree.
Right.
If you owe money on equipment or vehicles, the coverage is mandatory. Of course, driving on the road, insurance is mandatory.
Right.
And workers' comp is mandatory. So you're selling products that they have to buy.
Right.
And the approach then is really trying to refine the needs of the insurance, make sure they're accurate, make sure that all the bases are covered, yet at the same time managing the cost to the very best you can within the marketplace.
Right.
Life insurance is much more creative. Nobody expects that it's going to happen to them.
Right.
And being a positive person, I certainly am in that area.
Yep.
I don't think you realize things are not so good until they're not so good.
That's right.
And then it's already too late. It's already that the line of insurability has been crossed.
Right.
But now you can see it clearly and you're ready to do something, but it's already too late.
Right.
So the key is to sell early, convince them of the prudence of doing it and why it's necessary and why it's to their benefit.
Well, and I think we've both probably seen what a difference, life insurance. And like you said, people, particularly if you're young, I remember being 35 and you thought you were going to live I'm the one guy that's going to live forever. And I just can't imagine the world without me in it. I remember, but you get older and you realize things do happen. I've had several experiences where we've had clients that died early that we had worked with on insurance. I had a dentist two female dentists actually down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. We actually wrote buy-sell insurance on them. And then one of their husbands got terminal cancer. And she actually said, my husband would like to talk to you. And when I talked to him, he said, I have 12 weeks to live. I mean, literally. Now that really, when it hits home. And he said, I have a life policy and I wanted to ask you if you would help my wife file this claim, even though she was a very intelligent dentist and in practice. And I said, absolutely, I'll help her file the claim. He had $1 million policy. Within 2 weeks of his death, she had $1 million. That makes a difference. And we always say, hey, we're the only guys that are walking in with a bag of money in a time of crisis. Everybody else, the funeral home wants money. The IRS wants money, but when we walk in, we're bringing in a resolution for that family. Same thing with the long-term care. I've got a client right now that's on long-term care claim. He's 62 years old, full-blown dementia. His costs are $9,700 a month in a memory care unit, and yet we're paying out $10,000 for that long-term care policy, and he's 62. So you can, like you said, it's very satisfying when you see the end result of what you've done on those type products. So
you feel you really secured somebody's life, particularly the young families. And again, the cost is so minimal these days.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to buy a 10-year term and you're thinking, look, 30 at the very least.
That's it. It's still just $20 a month at 30 years old. Yeah.
Don't mess up. This is an easy decision. It may not seem like a lot right now, but believe me, it's a big deal.
Yep.
And lock it in now. And I think people are doing a little bit better that way, but it's still hard to get people to purchase life insurance.
Well, and you kind of hit on it too, was the cost of, everything seems like it's expensive these days, but everybody's homeowner's insurance is going up and all the issues around insuring roofs that are too old. And then, like you said, the commercial auto stuff is really expensive. And so trying to squeeze in that life insurance sale is just another expense that they're looking at. And so anything we can do to help them get that done, it would be really great.
I think it's the best thing we can do.
Yep. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, of course, I just mentioned long-term care, but really, I always ask people, what's your strategy for not getting older? People talk about strategies, education strategy or retirement strategy, but what's your strategy for not getting older? And so that's where the long-term care can come in.
Well, I'm definitely getting to the gym more frequently than I used to.
Yep.
If I don't get 4 days a week, I feel guilty.
That's good.
And I actually feel worse.
Yep.
So it's unfortunately too noticeable, even missing a day or two.
It is amazing, when you get used to going, how missing a day really affects you.
And you just have more energy, you feel better, your attitude's better.
Yep.
And then you take a day off and then you go, oh, gee, why did I do that?
Yep.
It's not better.
Well, I might say this wrong, but I saw a saying the other day where a guy said, I'd rather be the oldest guy in the gym than the youngest guy in the nursing home. And I was like, hey, I kind of like that. And
I like that too.
the gym I work out in, it's actually more of a weightlifting gym. It's a lot of weight stuff. And I have progressed from being one of the younger guys to one of the older guys. I look around and it's all 25 and 30-year-olds in there trying to prove something. But I said, yeah, you know what? I'd rather be the old guy in here every day, and trying to stay in shape like you do. So,
well, I'm actually motivated by the gym that I go to. There's some guys there that are close to 90, and they've got washboard stomachs.
Yep.
Now, there's still a little extra skin and all that stuff on there.
Yep.
But I'm incredibly impressed by how good a shape some of these people are in.
That's amazing. Yep.
There's a lot to aspire to.
That's it. One of our companies has a wellness program as part of their life insurance. And I was talking to this gentleman, and he's 66 years old, and he does karate. Very slim guy, very flexible. Like he was talking about the flexibility of doing karate because you're moving. But he said, I liked what he said. He said, you can't start an exercise program at 66. He said, you have to have been doing that from the time that you were younger to 66 because you're maintaining that flexibility and maintaining that conditioning. And he said, it's very hard to start at 66 when you haven't done that. So, that's all part of our industry too. The healthier you are, the less expensive your life insurance rates are, the less expensive your disability rates are. And now your health insurance. A lot of companies are giving you credit for staying in shape for health insurance. So that's a good topic to talk about. So
certainly the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is a good time to start. I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you, Mitch.
And we could do this again if you'd like to.
Love to. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Entrepreneur Perspectives. This show is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, where we create podcast writing and original media. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com.